Hi everyone, and welcome to a Mind Pod. This week's episode is in the series At Peace With and is called At Peace with Being Human. And my guest today is Basia Henderson. So thanks very much for joining me. I'm so pleased that you've agreed to be here. Now, Basia and I had a brief conversation about this a little while ago, and I was so inspired by how she describes it that, and I personally found it really helpful. I'm pretty sure that anyone listening will as well. So to me, at peace with being human, so it's, to me it kind of looks like, well, being human is about a myriad of experiences, and we are not in control of those experiences 99.9% of the time. And those experiences are part of being human, and we can be in resistance to our humanness and resistance to the experiences that we have. But from personal experience, whenever I'm in resistance to being human, I just seem to struggle and suffer. Now, Basha has a slightly different kind of, a spiritual way of looking at this. And that way of looking at the whole idea of being human is something that's just so helpful, because when we see who we really are and what we're made of and how life works in general, we're just able to navigate the ups and downs and the experiences that we like and we don't like so much better. That's kind of how it seems to me. But Basha, I'm going to hand over to you just to kind of maybe, um, yeah, give the people listening an idea of what it means to be human from kind of the conversation that you're coming from.
Okay. First of all, Nikki, thank you so much for having me and inviting me to this amazing conversation. And before I answer your question, I also want to say, it's like a little disclaimer, that everything I'm sharing here I'm sharing it from my understanding. So I'm not saying this is how it is, everyone else is wrong. I've been understanding this for some time now, and I've had quite a lot of insights that have changed my world and helped me heal and helped me get rid of or let go of certain things that didn't work for me, didn't serve me very well, without actually consciously letting them go.
Mm-hmm.
Having this understanding helped me relax into who I am, helped me understand how human experience is created, the experience of our reality. And as a byproduct of this understanding of myself and the nature of reality, certain things started falling away. So that's why I love sharing it with people. And even though the subject of today's conversation might seem quite abstract to some people, I like to bring it into how it actually plays out in our life on the practical level as well. And this is what I help with my clients with my coaching clients. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, cool. No, and actually every kind of conversation that I have on these podcasts is from that understanding that so we're all kind of like, although all of the podcasts kind of have a different at peace with, actually it's all pointing in the same direction, and it's all um coming from a similar perspective. So everybody that I talk to kind of shares from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you're right, it is just so helpful when we see really clearly. So I love the fact that, although it can seem quite an abstract concept, you're going to kind of break it down so that we can understand and see how it um so would I be right in thinking that there are kind of, in me, in kind of my, like, not necessarily my physical body, but like who I am, like to me it looks like there's two parts of me, and I've only really seen this in the last few years. You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
my humanness, and then there's my spiritual side.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, okay, I love to start from here. And now let's go back to your question. You said, so what do you define as human experience or humanity first?
Mm-hmm.
So by this I mean um, everything we experience here, um, from our personal thinking to what we feel, to how we behave, how we act, to our cultural upbringing, our education, our conditioning, to what we create here, in our business, in our personal lives, our relationships, our health, our just everything that is this human condition. So it's not just because sometimes, when we talk to people and people tend to say, oh, I just had this human moment, and so we tend to associate this being human just with our weak moments, but actually as humans on this human plane of form, we actually create really amazing things. So it's not just our weaknesses; it's what we actually create on a tangible level, and sometimes these things are, like miracles. So that's the human side, and then on the other side is the spiritual, what I like to call divine. Um, and I know it might be quite a big word, just like God can be quite a big word, for some.
Mm-hmm.
And, different people have different definitions. So what I mean by that is our deeper nature and what's formless. So what's before form, before everything that I described as the human side of
Mm-hmm.
life, of the reality of us. Um, so everything that is before that. So all the forces that come into play in forming our human experience, our perception. Um, this is the divine. So it's uh, the wisdom, the deeper mind that governs everything, that inspires everything, the creativity, um, the the infinite potential that creates, it's the same energy that creates planets in the universe and new galaxies, and it's the same energy that beats our heart, that makes that creates new cells, like thousands of new cells every single moment that we live. It's the same force that gives us this fresh thought, the fresh ideas to then create something on this tangible level, on this level of form. And you mentioned that you discovered that there are two parts of you, human and divine. I see it a little bit differently. I see it as they are actually together. And life, you know, being here, living on earth, is this constant dance between one and the other.
Mm-hmm.
And as I see it, is the humanness and the human form, like everything of form, is contained within the spiritual realm. So they are not separate, they are together.
See, that's interesting. Hold on a minute. Let me just. So everything of form is contained within the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
I love that because and I love what you said at the beginning of it as well. Um, how we tend to look at our humanness as a negative thing. Oh, you know that when we are human, we make mistakes and we have bad experiences, and it but to see that actually all of it is spiritual anyway, and I love the idea of the dance between the two. do you think, I'm just wondering, like, so I think the reason that I really struggled and suffered with anxiety and depression and phobias and was because I was so obsessed with my humanness. I I wasn't like so the divine is always was always, you know, from the minute that I took my first breath, it was, you know, it's even before that. But I was on an intellectual level, I was completely unaware
Mm-hmm.
of this energy that you talk about that I now see.
Mm-hmm.
I see that. Do you think that that's why, you know, we go through periods of our life when we really struggle with things because we just lose connection, or it's like we lose eyes for the divine part of ourselves?
Mm. I think so, Nikki, because you know how I see it is, as you said, we are born with it, so it's always there. You can never lose it. You can never become just human and not be divine. Like, it's always there. It's just, you know, I think it's much more ordinary than we think it is, and I think it can be sometimes I don't know if it's the right word, romanticized, or you know, or it's described sometimes in such mystical terms that we think it's something that, you know, only the the greatest, I don't know, sages or philosophers or the enlightened people
Yeah.
managed to touch at some point when they had this enlightening experience. And I don't think that's true. I mean, I know it's not true because I've seen it in my life, and I definitely don't consider myself being
Yeah.
enlightened.
Yeah.
I can be as human as possible, and sometimes have these human moments, meaning like these low moments that I feel, you know, that I feel uncomfortable and I feel like I'm suffering sometimes, you know. And at the same time really knowing that there is this wisdom within me, that and this innate wellness within me
Mm.
that is definitely not of this world and is always available there if I only stop my habitual thinking and slow down my mind and get present. I immediately get reconnected to it. Or, you know, actually, I would even argue we can't even get disconnected. It's just we lose sight of it
Yes.
because we get so caught up in the noise of our humanness, of the
Yeah.
ego
Yeah.
voice.
So there's such a cool like analogy for this that that I don't even know where I heard it, or but I would share it in a group that I am part of, mainly for people that suffer with anxiety or mental health issues. And it's like, you know, if I was to, I don't know, come out of this room and knock my hand on the door, you know, it might bleed. Like I might get a graze and it might bleed. Without like going into my intellectual mind, my human mind, I would just instinctively go rinse it under some water and I might just leave it like that or put a plaster on it. But instinctively, I know that it's going to heal. I don't have to do anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of, you know, the body does that for me. I don't have to go on Google and go, how do I fix my hand? I don't have to read self help books about fixing my hand. I don't have to go to therapy to try and fix my hand. It just fixes all by itself
Mm-hmm.
when I leave it alone and allow the energy and how things are meant to be to play out. If I do, though, go in and I pick at it, you know, when the scab forms and I pick at it and I pick at it, chances are it's going to take a whole lot longer to heal. And to me, that's kind of like how mental health kind of problems sort of get exacerbated is that we think that, so we have the sensation of feeling anxious or worried, and we go into our intellectual mind to try to fix it and to get it, give it a label, and but what we're doing by that, we're just picking at the scab.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just making the problem worse. And if we just kind of notice that that's going on, leave it alone, because of this divine energy that's in us, that is meant to return us
Mm-hmm.
to default, peace of mind. That's how it's meant to work. And the only thing that ever stops that from working is 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 getting caught up in our intellectual human mind. If we have this divine energy that, like you say, creates galaxies and changes the tides and makes the sun set and rise, why would I go and try and figure out in my little human brain things that I don't really understand and I was never meant to?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and I think it's just because, um, so we have these two resources. We have this intellectual mind, and I just want to point out, in case anyone listening thinks, okay, so I shouldn't be thinking, or my intellect is of no use and I should just give up. It's not that. It's just there are situations where intellect is needed. Our thinking, the things that we know, that we remember, that we have learned, are useful. And then there are situations where we should actually just trust and know that there is deeper wisdom available to us. It's not our wisdom, it's wisdom that is available to everyone.
Yeah.
It's universal. It doesn't come from us, and if we just allow it, it actually gives us far greater um, ideas, solutions, um, clarity that we could ever make up with our intellectual mind. So for example, when we face a challenge in life or work, business, relationship, whatever, we have this tendency to go and fix it with what we know, and we just start to think more and more about it. And what happens usually, as we add more thought to it, more thinking, our vision narrows, because we're so
Yeah.
focused on this one thing, and the problem becomes more problematic. It just seems to grow, and we, at that point, our perspective is really contracted, and we don't seem to see any solutions. And if we just leave it alone, and I don't mean ignore your problems and be in denial. What I mean, from that level of thinking, from that contracted mind, you're not going to come up with smart solutions anyway. So just leave it alone and come back to it with your mind clears up, because it always does.
Yeah.
It has this self-correcting mechanism
Mm.
inbuilt in it innately. So when we just allow our mind to slow down and clear, we get fresh perspective, we get fresh ideas, and then we see solutions to the problems, or the problem sometimes just even disappears because we realize that we just created that problem with our own thinking.
Yeah. And there's I don't know if it's Einstein, but there's a quote, isn't there? You can't use the same, I don't know, quality of thinking that created the problem to find the solution, or
Mm.
that the
Yeah,
I.
it's Albert Einstein quote.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which I've completely misquoted, I know.
yeah, it's something like you cannot create a solution with the same level of thinking that created the problem, or something
Yes,
like that.
yeah, yeah, that's it, much better. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the idea, is that, when problems are created, they're generally created from a low quality, insecure
Mm-hmm.
thought.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about that, because you can then get caught up with, well, that's a part of my humanness that I want to reject, like we can get caught up with, well, I only want to have high quality, good quality, clear, folk, fresh, creative thinking, well, then you're kind of rejecting the humanness of yourself. And therein lies another problem, because actually it seems to me what all of this is about is it's like accepting and loving our
Mm-hmm.
humanness
Yeah.
and seeing the divine in us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, I think when we know that we are spiritual, that we are divine, um, when we actually have this understanding, we can then be as human as we want to, as we can, because you are able to observe it, but you know what's available to you. You
Yeah.
know that you're something much bigger, and that when you know it, when you know your real nature and the spiritual nature of reality, you actually can go and experience life deeper, and not be afraid of your emotions. Before I had this understanding, before I really connected with who I am, I would really be a lot in the management mode. So I would manage my emotions. When I was low, the moods were um, lasting for quite long.
Mm.
I had depressive moods, I had anxiety, I had panic attacks, all of it. And I would be there sometimes for weeks,
Mhm.
um, with glimpses of you know
Yeah.
good uh,
Yeah.
good mood as well. But I would seem like this is all it was all consuming, and I would be just there for so long. But I would be there for so long because I was trying to get out of it. I was trying to manage it. I was making a story out of it, what it means about me, what it means about my life, and what's going to happen if I don't get out of it, what's the worst case scenario. And then when I was in a lighter space, in a good mood, I would be thinking about, oh, okay, I'm going to pay for it, for this good mood with the bad mood very soon. And I wonder how long it's going to last. And funnily enough, it didn't last that long, because I thought myself into the low mood again, instead of enjoying it. Whereas now, it's not like when you have this understanding, you're then going to live in bliss all the time. It's just, you can have low moments and not be so afraid of them. you
Yeah.
can you can be as human as possible, and almost enjoy it like a horror movie in the cinema. Well, horror movies are not my thing, but some people like horror movies, and they, even though they feel the emotion, like strong emotion, because they're like almost like experiencing this movie, so they maybe feel fear or they jump out of the seat, but at the same time they actually come back because they enjoy this experience of watching this movie, because they know it's a movie.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
actually having this understanding, you can live life and see it's just a movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that, and I really saw that for myself. And I love horror movies. So it can't ever be the horror movie
Mm,
that's causing my enjoyment and your fear. Like it's
mhm,
always our thinking in the moment about,
mm,
I'll tell you this story. So, and it was really something where I kind of got it's a movie playing out. So when I was, well, the first film that my mum ever took me to see was Bambi, and I must have been about 5 or 6, and so I grew up with just my mum. It was just my mum and I. We had no aunts or uncles, no grandparents, no brothers or sisters. And one of my biggest fears, I remember as a child, was that something would happen to my mum and I would go into an orphanage. Like I had this fear. And I really used to worry about her dying, because I thought that would happen. And so, anyway, we go to watch Bambi. And for anybody that knows the story of Bambi, in the very beginning, Bambi's mum dies. So for me, that was like, I totally related with that. And I was hysterically crying, and I'm 5 or 6 years old, and I don't know that you need to be quiet in the cinema. And so I'm sobbing like loud and, you know, and it doesn't stop. And my mum tried to reassure me, and I just did. I was inconsolable. So we had to leave because everybody, quite rightly so, was getting quite annoyed at the 5-year-old that wouldn't stop crying. We got home, we got the bus, we got home. I was still distraught. I was just so distraught because I was making that movie real for me. But then I was thinking about it like a few months ago in the with eyes for this conversation now. And I just kind of smiled to myself because I just thought, all my mum's efforts to quiet me down and settle me down, no one told me it was just a movie.
Mm.
No one said to me, Nikki, this is just a film. It's not going to happen to you. It's not happening to you. It's just a movie. You don't need to be scared. No one told me, and then all the years of like anxiety and depression, like no one kind of went, Nikki, this awful movie that's playing out right now, it can't hurt you. Because I thought that movie broke me. It said something about me, like you said, it meant I was broken. So to actually see, like you say, that it is just a movie, and the same thing can be playing, and depending on our thinking, we'll have a completely different experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we're always unharmed, unchipped, undented by whatever is playing. And that is freedom. I remember someone saying to me that when you really get this understanding, you are free to have 10 panic attacks a day, completely freak out in the dentist chair, cry your eyes out and hide under the duvet all day, every day. Never leave your house because you're always okay.
Mm-hmm. That's powerful, isn't it? That we're always okay, and whatever happens in our human experience, it's it always changes, but our true essence, our soul can never be dented. It can never be broken. And I think I really wish more people could know about it, and I'm just so happy that you're having these conversations and putting them out there for people to listen to, because especially nowadays with everything that's going on in the world with the pandemic and just everything, we live under a lot of pressure, and people's mental health suffers a lot. And some people just have no idea that everything that seems so real for them, is created moment by moment by their by thought, and their thinking changes moment by moment. And if we can only notice that we don't feel exactly the same way about the same situation, like right now, and in an hour and tomorrow we're going to feel completely differently about a situation out there, or about ourselves, about our ability. And nothing changes. It's just the level of our thinking, our mood changes, our feeling change, and according to the level of our thinking, our feelings change. If we only notice that, if we only know that this is how it works, that this is the nature of human experience, it just would change so much for people.
Yeah. Yeah, like
and whether someone is spiritual or not, it works the same way, whether someone
yeah.
believes it or not. And I just I listen to Dickon Bettinger talk about this when he talks to businessmen who are not spiritual, or who don't want to even like bother themselves with the world of spirituality, because they put it down to religion, like that belongs to church, and I'm just this businessman. And but then they talk about the problems, and so I remember Dickon saying, so I don't want to be explaining it in the sort of spiritual terms because they won't connect with it. But sometimes I ask them, so when you have a problem and you sometimes go to sleep and then you wake up and the problem disappears, or you have a new idea, you have the solution, where does it come from? And they say, well, it comes out of the blue. And he said, exactly, let's talk about the blue. I just love it because, honestly, whether someone is spiritual or religious, and by the way, when I talk about it, I don't attach it to any religion.
No.
I just talk about the facts of life and behind life that I've seen work for me, for my clients, for many people, for my teachers. And whether we want to believe it or not, and however we want to call it, because different traditions call it differently. It's all semantics, but what's behind it, what's the truth behind it, what's the feeling behind it, and how it works is always the same.
Yeah, I love that. I love the distinction that, because I'm very non-religious. I kind of, I guess, wow, I just never have been. And so initially, I can remember in the beginning of kind of my three principles exposure, when people spoke of God, I just would shut down, you know?
Mhm.
Now, like that, now people talk about God all the time, but I've heard enough people say, and I see for myself that it really doesn't matter what you call it. And some people call it that, some call it the divine, some call it spiritual, like call it whatever you want, because it makes no difference whether you are religious or not religious, or it's just innate. It's just in all of us. Like, whether I believe in God, it doesn't mean that I have less access to spiritual
Mhm.
divine intelligence than anybody else. It's so I think that's a really good point to make, because I think sometimes I know people can shut down when they hear there is, even something like the word divine or God, or it's like, oh, no, 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 no. But it's like you say, it's not in the words.
Mhm.
It's never in the words. Like, the words really don't matter. It's more than that. It's in the blue.
Mhm. Exactly.
You know?
Let's call it the blue, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I just, yeah, when you think about it, it's everywhere. The blue, the God, this energy is everywhere. You can notice it in nature. You can notice it in yourself. You can notice it in the child. Actually, children are
Mhm.
amazing. They are the wisest
Yeah.
creatures on earth because they're not contaminated with this conditioning, with this thinking. And when they do something, they do it from, like, it comes straight from wisdom. How sometimes, I mean, I don't have kids, but I have a niece and nephew, and I lots of my friends have kids as well. And I sometimes, when I listen to what kids say in their own little way, obviously, but there's so much wisdom in it.
Yes.
They have so much compassion. They have, I don't know, they're just not contaminated, and there's just so much beauty. They don't hold back because of some fear. They want to try everything, whether they know how to do it or not. They just go and do it and test, and they fall, and they pick themselves up and try again. And they don't hold on to feelings, right? They feel something, they feel it fully, they have a full tantrum, and then 5 minutes later they're the best friend with that person,
Yes.
and the most happy person in the world, and they don't remember
And
little things.
that's I mean, and everybody listening to this can relate to that and will have
Mm,
seen that. That's that's like the essence of us. That's kind of, I don't know, it looks to me like that's how we were meant to be,
mm,
and we do get, I think it's almost impossible. Almost. I do know some people actually who are still like that. They're very like children, moment to moment to moment to moment.
mhm,
But it's very rare for us not to go through life without, like you say, conditioning and stories and beliefs, and have that play on our human minds when
mm,
it comes to doing things, something new, or something, or reflecting on something that's been upsetting that we hold on to, you know, where a 5-year-old would just be like, right, what's for dinner? You know. um, but there's, you know, that's where the joy is. That's kind of like, in some ways, that's my like goal, to live life like a 5-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But just knowing that, that this is available to us, and it's not going to be always like that. We're not going to be like that 100% of the time, but just knowing
Yeah.
that it is there, and just enjoying while you're in that space, and when you're not, just knowing that it's going to pass. That's amazing. And it's this constant dance, I just love this quote. I think I mentioned to you before, but I had this amazing insight in September when I was on holiday, and I was inquiring into this like nature of who I am, and just continuously asking this question, who am I, without answering, and I was in this very like nice quiet space, sitting by the river, and I just heard in my head, you are nothing and you are everything. And it just blew my mind, because I knew it didn't come from me, because I really didn't know what it meant. And then I looked into it, and I went online, like, who said that, maybe what philosophers or what spiritual teachers talked about it. And I found this beautiful quote by a non-duality mystic teacher, Nisargadatta Maharaj, who says, wisdom is knowing that we are nothing, or I am nothing, and love is knowing I am everything. And between the two, life moves, or something like that. And I just think that's the essence of it. And how I see it is, this nothing is this humanness, because, and what it represents, it's not that we are nothing, like, oh, you are nothing, so don't think too much about yourself. That's not what I mean. By that I mean that the nature of human experience, and of being human, what we do, what we feel, what we think, what we create, even, it's all changeable. It changes all the time. Nothing really here in this human realm of form lasts forever. That is the one thing that is for sure, that we can
Yes.
know for sure. And that's this nothing, because it really doesn't matter. Because even if something seems so painful right now, or so difficult, in 5 minutes, in, I don't know, 5 days, 5 weeks, or 5 years, it just won't even matter. So why worry and stress so much? And then on the other side is this love, is knowing that we are everything, because we are part of this oneness, of this, we are all connected to the same spirit, to the same wisdom. And that wisdom, and that love, that wholeness and oneness is available to all of us. So, and that's why we can deal with whatever is thrown at us in this human realm, because we belong to something much bigger, to this everything. And that's the beauty of human experience, that we dance between the two.
I just love that. So we are nothing and we are everything. I think that's just beautiful, and actually a perfect place to finish. Um, Basia, thank you so so much for today. I love what you've shared, and I know that anyone listening will have got so much from what you shared today. If anybody listening wants to get in touch with you or find out how to work with you, how would they do that?
I'm quite active on Facebook, Basia Henderson, Basia, for anyone who's listening, and also on Instagram and LinkedIn. So happy to
Perfect.
connect and chat more about it with anyone who's
Yeah.
curious.
Oh, great. Well, look, thank you so much for today. I'm
Thank you.
so thrilled, and thanks for everybody that's been listening. Yeah, take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye. Bye
Bye.
bye.